Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Laura Dillon from MS Dynamics World, and we are here today for a session all about Xpertdoc Smart Flows for Dynamics 365, the better, faster alternative to SSRS reports. Our presenter today is Erwin Bugenhout with Xpertdoc, and we are delighted to welcome him back to be with us again today. So as we get started, please know that we do welcome your questions. You can enter them in at any time during the presentation in the Q&A box that you'll see over on the right side of your event window. And I know that Erwin will be leaving time at the end to get to as many of them as he can. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to Erwin to get us started.
Thanks for the introduction, Laura. I think a lot of people are having lunch or even dinner, some of you, at this very point, so enjoy that. And I'll be happy to try and digest the food that you're having right now very smoothly. So the idea is that I'm going to talk to you today about document generation. By the way, if you're not having food right now, I hope the content will be digested very smoothly. I'm going to talk to you about document generation. Funny thing, specifically document generation for Microsoft Dynamics CRM, or customer engagement, as we have to call it right now. Funny thing is that if you look at Microsoft, they're basically the creator of a fantastic CRM system, which is Dynamics 365. With so many beautiful capabilities. They're also the creator of something else called Microsoft Office that has a brilliant word processor called Microsoft Word. But yet, if you try to generate documents out of Microsoft Dynamics 365 for customer engagement, you're going to find yourselves a wee bit stuck from time to time. And that's basically what this session is all about. So if you're running into difficulties there and you just can't get that beautifully looking document out of Microsoft Dynamics CRM that you wished for and that you really wanted to send to your customer, if you just can't get it into SharePoint, if you just can't seem to figure out a way to put it as a PDF attached to an email and send it out, if you just can't figure out a way to get the data out of Microsoft Dynamics CRM, get it into a document, and then present that document to a customer, a potential customer, for e-signing, for instance, and then get the signed document back and put that into SharePoint and everything, well, then this is your session. This is the session where you're going to hear all about it and where you're going to find out that it is not all that difficult, okay? You do need an add-on, and that add-on is Xpertdoc Smart Flows, okay? And that's what this is all about. A little bit about us, a little bit about me. Myself, I am Erwin. I am a product manager for Xpertdoc. I'm based out of the very beautiful wee little country called Belgium, right in the middle of Europe. So I'm very close to Brussels. Local time for me is 6 p.m. right now, and it's been a beautiful day here in Belgium. And we had a very nice summer this year, and it looks like this summer never ends. Although there's a bit of chilly weather that has been announced for the next couple of days. But here we are from tropical Belgium. Although I'm from Belgium, I'm actually representing a Canadian company this time around called Xpertdoc Technologies. That's because I used to work for a company called Invenso that had a product called Xpertdoc. And that company has been acquired earlier on this year by a Canadian company called Xpertdoc Technologies. Now, both Invenso, the Belgian company I used to work for, and Xpertdoc have this thing in common, and that is that they have a very clear focus on on delivering better and faster documents in a digital way. That's basically what those companies had in common, and rather than being competitors for the rest of our existence, we thought it would be a great idea to join forces. So that's what we did, and that's brought us to a point where we now have more than 40 in-house experts, as we call them, on document generation and document management and anything documents on both sides of the Atlantic. We have a very strong presence of experts in Canada, in Quebec. We're based out of Quebec, Terrebonne, very close to Montreal, and in Europe. As I mentioned, we have this very nice office in Belgium, where another 20 experts on document generation, mainly there, are working every day. It's not just the 40, little bit over 40 of us that are doing all that stuff. We have about 100 value-added resellers who are, in many cases, Microsoft Dynamics partners. So the companies you work with to get your Dynamics up and running and to get everything installed and everything customized to your needs. Well, these people, I think about a little bit over 100 of them are reselling our solution as well, just to kind of make sure that the gap that there is right now around document generation, around getting all that rich data out of Microsoft Dynamics and putting it into a nice looking document and delivering that document and then storing that document, that gap is kind of overcome. Okay. I've got a slide somewhere in this presentation where we will go into some of the partners that we have right now. So maybe your partner is in there. If it's not, we're always happy to talk and to connect to your partner. Right. So what is it with Dynamics and document generation? Right now, if you have Dynamics and it's out of the box and you haven't really looked around for extensions to it for document generation, you're left basically with two options. And first option would be SQL Server Reporting Services, what is called SSRS usually. Okay. And your other option would be to go for the out-of-the-box Microsoft Word document generation. Now, if you look at those two options, honestly, then in many cases you will find that that SQL Server Reporting Services is maybe a very good tool to do some reporting and to do BI, but it's really built for developers. It's built in such a way that well, you can define your queries and everything, but really if it's about making sure that you get a good looking document there, and like for instance a quote or something, that's going to be just so much work and so much developer work just to get a quote out of Dynamics. And in many cases, that's not what you want, because let's be honest, quotes are created by salespeople. Wouldn't it be nice if the templates that they would like to use, that they can maintain their own templates? If if it's maintained by marketing people and they think that the logos of your company should shift just a little bit, just a tiny inch to the left or to the right, wouldn't it be great if they could just get into the template and then drag the logo a little bit to the left or to the right and then just leave your developers alone, right? I can imagine that a lot of administrators that may be in the room today would be glad not to have all those silly document generation or template, SSRS template questions asked to them by their business people. And on the other hand, I can imagine that a lot of business people would be happy to be able to do it themselves rather than to have to go through development and everything every time. Okay, so the other option is the out-of-the-box Microsoft Word document generation, and well, that's more like it. That's really what you want. But there, the problem is that it's really too limited. You can, in terms of that data collection, for instance, you can just go one level deep. You can collect the data that is on the record that you start the process from, and you can go one record further, meaning one related record, one level of relationship deep, and that's basically it. So you can indeed show a table with subgrid records. That's perfectly possible. But if you want to get to data that is on an entity that is a bit further away, that is more remote, that needs 2 or 3 or maybe 4 or 5 different layers of hierarchy in the relationship, well, sorry, that's just not going to happen. So that's really a problem and a limitation, a very important limitation with the out-of-the-box Word document generation that Microsoft provides there. So for a lot of companies, that really makes it very hard to work with that tool. Same thing in terms of template design. There are quite a few limitations in template design. If things like a barcode, things like, hey, I want to put some conditional content in here. It will be very hard to do that. And then also, it may be okay to generate Word documents, but what if you want to do a PDF? And what if you want to email that PDF straight out as an attachment? And what if you want to store it in SharePoint? And what if you want to deliver it for e-signing and so on and so forth? All these output options, well, they're not there. It's going to create a Word document, and basically that's it. But here you are. It's a good thing we have an alternative for that. It's called Xpertdoc Smart Flows for Microsoft Dynamics 365. And really, to be honest, if you look at the history of our companies, what this is actually the successor of a tool called Xpertdoc. Okay, so there used to be this tool called Xpertdoc that we built in Belgium, and on the Belgian side of the company. And after the acquisition, we decided to rebrand it into Xpertdoc Smart Flows. So we did not only rebrand it, we rebuilt it, we reinvented it, and we made it better and more powerful. It is what we think the perfect document generation tool for Microsoft Dynamics should be. And that is a tool that combines the best of the two worlds. It has the power of SSRS, and it is yet very easy to use. Okay, so easy to use, easy to manage, but powerful, and it's also easy to integrate. There's no complex stuff needed. It's just you can run it in the cloud, or you can have it on premises if you want to, and it integrates with Dynamics out of the box. It's turnkey. Yeah, it has a turnkey integration also to SharePoint. It has a turnkey integration for DocuSign, Certify, other e-signing providers, Google Cloud Print, and it also comes with a very strong REST API to really include it if you're a partner and you want to. You're thinking of, can I just, instead of using the out-of-the-box thing, can I build it into my own solution? Yes, you can, because it comes with a very broad and well-documented REST API. For an end user, it's super easy. It's just like Word document generation out of the box. It's one or two clicks, and you have your document. You do not only have your document, it's going to be stored, it's going to be delivered, and that's it. You can do it from the browser, or you can do it from within your connected mobile device. Okay, so we've taken scale of screens and everything into account. You can use this thing on a mobile device as well. For a designer, it's very easy to use as well, very easy to manage. We have an add-in for Microsoft Word to do template design and everything. And if you look at how you define the processes to deliver, to build, and to deliver, to generate and to deliver and to store the documents, well, it's going to be a visual designer that's available with some drag and drop functionality to kind of build out your processes. Pretty much like Microsoft Flow, in fact. All right, so what is this all about? Just in a nutshell, you want to accelerate the document creation process for your end users. You want to make your end users more productive, so that's very important. Okay. Second point here in my kind of overview of quick wins is that you want to leverage data from across and beyond Microsoft Dynamics. You want to be able to reach all of the different entities in Dynamics, whether or not they're only one level of relationship away. Everything's reachable. That's very important, and you can even go beyond Dynamics. Later on, when I'm doing the live demo of the solution, you're going to see that we're perfectly able of including data that is not residing in Dynamics, but it's residing somewhere else in a third-party tool. For instance, I have an example later on I'm going to show you where we get product data from a product database outside of Microsoft Dynamics CRM. We connect that data to the product records in Dynamics, in fact, to the line items of a quotation, right? So that's how that works. You can go on, and from your flow, you can call a service that brings in data that lives elsewhere. You can ensure consistency. And that's very important. You can ensure consistency across all your outbound document flows. What's that all about? Well, consistency on a level, obviously, of the look and feel of your documents. Since you're using templates, your documents are going to be consistent in the way they look, but also the content. Since you're basically bringing in all the data from Dynamics, that data is the right data. You really can leverage Dynamics here as the single source of truth, and then all the data that's in there can be consistently brought into the documents that you produce. No more copying and pasting and everything. It's just going to be the data that's in Dynamics that will be on your documents. But consistency also in the way that you deliver and store the documents. Any way you want it, but it's always going to be the same process. A quotation is always going to be delivered in exactly the same way. And you're going to see later on in the demo that you can perfectly put conditional logic into the processes. Consistency is one thing, but logic is another thing. You can perfectly build logic into the processes. Like, for instance, check whether a quotation has a certain amount, and if the total amount of the quotation is higher than a certain amount, well, then we're going to do this and this and this and that. Maybe do an approval process first. If it's lower than a certain amount, why not send it straight to the end customer to sign it via DocuSign or something like that? So that's all perfectly possible to build. Build the process once, reuse it every time. Consistency. And then the last point I already touched there is to empower the business user and make sure that your IT people can really focus on IT stuff and are not shifting the corporate logo on the document template from left to right all the time. Okay, guys, so you wouldn't be the first person to ever use this tool. There are quite a few companies. Most of these companies are based out of the US. I don't think there's so many European ones. I think Konica and Home Office are European based, but I just put most of the American and Canadian ones in there. You wouldn't be the first one to use this tool. They're mainly in Europe right now because this is coming from the European part of the company. I think we have somewhere between 600 and 700 implementations right now of the software. We haven't created or we haven't managed all those implementations ourselves. Most of the implementations are through partners, and I have listed a few of those partners at the bottom there of the screen. I think most of the people in the call are US based, so I kind of focused on partners that implement our software in the US. Okay. Good. I'm happy. I'm done with the with the PowerPoint stuff. I'm totally not a PowerPoint person. I always like to show things in real life. So let's get out of this environment or this PowerPoint stuff, and let's get into some live action. And let's have a look. I'm going to run you through a couple of scenarios and through a couple of different takes on perspectives on smart flows. First of all, a couple of scenarios from an end user perspective. What I'd like to cover with you is 4 things. First of all, maybe a marketing scenario where you would start, for instance, from an account in Dynamics and send one or more accounts from a list, send them a letter, like for instance a welcome letter. Hey, happy you're our new customer, and so on and so forth. So that would be a first scenario. And maybe you want to store that letter also in SharePoint. Okay, so let's run that as a first scenario. I also want to take you through another scenario, maybe a management scenario, a little bit more, a reporting scenario, where you'd say, well, hey, let's start from that same account maybe, and let's create an overview report of the opportunities that we have for this account. And we want to see some charts in there, and we want to see some numbers in there, some calculations, and maybe we also want to make sure that the file that we produce is password protected, because we don't want this thing to end up in the wrong hands. It's for management eyes only. Third scenario could be, for instance, a quotation scenario. The one I already mentioned, where we would bring in some external data, maybe ask a few questions to the salesperson as he or she is creating the quotation and then deliver it to the customer via email, and maybe do a second quote scenario as well, where we are going to deliver the file directly to DocuSign if the quotation, for instance, is lower than $50,000, right? That could be scenario number 3, and then maybe close the thing off with a fourth scenario that is a field service scenario. Say you have somebody on the road that is doing repair stuff and something broke, needs to be repaired, needs to be replaced. Well, maybe the customer needs to sign off on the maintenance activities and needs to sign off on the intervention report after the actual intervention. We'll use DocuSign for that as well. Why not just generate a report, have the person DocuSign it there and then, right on the spot, and then get the signed document and put it into SharePoint. Okay, those would be a couple of scenarios from the end user's perspective. Then I'm going to walk you through how things look from an administrator's perspective, how you set up the things that you need to set up before your end user can start generating those documents and delivering them in all those different ways. And then finally, we're going to have a look at the template designer. If I can do that in the remainder of the session, which is about 40 minutes, and I want to leave some time for questions, then I'd be very proud of myself. So let's start with no further ado, and let's take it to some accounts first. So, okay, say you're a marketing person and you want to send out some letters to a couple of companies. Like, there you go. Let's do these 4 maybe. Say you want to send some letters and you want to create the letters and maybe store them into SharePoint. What you basically want to do is start from a list view, select a couple. You can select up to 250 per screen in CRM, per page in CRM, right? And what you want to do is use the Smart Flows button that you have over here. Okay, so you have Smart Flows, and it's a split button, so that means you can click the main part of the button. You can also click the drop down over here, and it will drop down the flows, the document generation and delivery processes that we have defined specifically for account records. Okay. Later on in the session, I'm going to show you how you define such flows. We were going to start with the account welcome letter. Why not just click it? What actually will happen is that Smart Flows will open up. It will start generating files, and we'll start storing these files in SharePoint. Okay, there we are. So we have our results. Documents are generated, one for Fort Coffee, one for Litware, one for AdventureWorks, one for Fabricum, and so on and so forth. And we have those files right into SharePoint. If I open up this link to SharePoint, it will take me to the SharePoint document location related to the record in Dynamics that we started the process from. And there we have our welcome letter for Fort Coffee. If I open it up, it's just a straightforward, very simple document, and that's it. Okay, just plain letter. Okay. Good. So we have 4 of them. You saw that went pretty smoothly, went pretty quickly. You can do up to 250 in one list in one go. That would take a little longer, but no worries. It kind of runs in its own screen, so you can just continue doing your other stuff that you absolutely need to do very quickly while everything is generating in the back. Okay, so that's just one scenario. Just generate a document and put it into SharePoint. Okay. I'm going to pick my ADATM account right here, and I'm going to show you that you can also start not so much from the list view, but also from the detail view of your record. So you can start from here, and let's run the opportunities report, for instance. If you do that, basically something else is going to happen. It's happening in the back right now. It's kind of reusing the same window, the same tab, same browser tab that we were using before. And it went so fast you actually didn't even see it. So it says successfully ran SmartFlows opportunities report. And if we open this one up, this is going to show us a password protected file. Good thing I know the password. That contains some charts around the data on this particular record. So let's have a look at that. What we're looking at right now is a breakdown of the contacts here by gender. And you see we have a couple of female contacts in here and some male contacts, and the females are winning. They're always winning. And then contacts by magazine subscription. Basically, once again, we break down the different contacts, but this time not only by gender, but also by a field called magazine subscription. So we pretend that our phony little company, Sanlimo, that we're working with, that's our own little kind of Contoso company that we have, that we use in demos. Sanlimo has this magazine called the Infinite Resource magazine that they sent out every month, and it's sent out to a couple of people that work for a Datamart customer. Okay. So here you can perfectly see that all of the male contacts, so two of the two male contacts are subscribed to the magazine, and one of the two female contacts that we have are subscribed, are not subscribed. Okay. Then if there are two males and two males and two females, what's this all about? Well, probably there's going to be one that does not have a value for the field of magazine subscription, right? So that's what. Oh no, there are three females. Okay, no, there are three females. That's why you see this breakdown. Yeah, okay. So they all have their magazine subscription fields filled out. Opportunity revenue by percentage by status. This is looking at the opportunities for this particular account, and then you see the percentages in a nice ring chart of how many of these opportunities are lost, how many are won, how many are open. And here you see the same thing, but by estimated revenue. Okay. So, and you can see that you can put the nice currency amounts and everything in there. Okay, you can see the open opportunities are counts and sums that we can do, so calculations that we can do in a report, right? Okay, good. So that's a report. Second scenario. So first scenario was a marketing scenario. Just send a letter to the people and save it back into SharePoint. Second scenario was more like a management scenario. You want to see some charts, some overviews, what's happening with this customer, how are we doing. There you go. That's your report right there. Let's move to sales. If we look at the customers that we have right now for SmartFlows, most of the people that are using it for exactly this, quotations. You want to send that great looking quotation out to your customer, and that's where most people are struggling with the tools that Microsoft is offering out of the box. So let's have a look at scenarios that we have over here. Let's say that I'm going to start here from the list view once again, and let's generate a document by clicking not so much the drop down, because if I would use the drop down, I would see different flows here because we're on a different entity. But let me just click the main part of the button here. Going to reuse that tab again that I have open, and there we go. We have two flows that we can run from here. There's a quote with external data and user input, and there's a quote with an approval process. Let me just do the first one first. Quote with external data and user input. This is a flow where we're going to ask some questions to the end user. I'm going to bring in some data that lives in an external database, bring that all together, and generate a document. Take that document and add it as an attachment to an email that we're going to send to the contact that is the quote contact for this particular quotation, right? And we're going to do that in just a couple of clicks. Right. First of all, ask some quote questions. So I started the process, and as an end user, I get a couple of questions, right? Alternative text for the first paragraph, for instance. Hey, if I want to personalize my quote here and say something like, "It was great to talk to you today, John. We should meet for drinks again soon," something like that. Blah, 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 blah. And here's my quotation and blah, blah. Okay, so can perfectly do that and then include product descriptions. This is interesting. This is basically spec sheets that we save in this case against as node attachments against the product records in Dynamics, and we're going to bring in those documents, those predefined documents. In this case, they live in CRM, but they could perfectly live in SharePoint. They could live on a URL, a publicly available URL, and we can bring them in through the URL if you map that in. So anywhere they are, you can bring them into the document, and we're going to include them. If you want to exclude them, you can perfectly exclude them. Okay, but let's include them. And then some questions around the terms and conditions section that we have in this document. By default, it's gonna print the long version of that section in the document, but we could perfectly go for the short version maybe and cut some of the red tape here. Okay, so let's hit next. So what's going to happen right now is that we have the questions, we get some user data, we create a document, get the external data in, and then we're going to create that email. It's so fast I can't even explain what's happening while it's happening. So we have everything, right? So we have to generate a document, which is called quotation number and then the quote ID for a datum. And a datum is the name of our customers. As you can see, you can name your document, or the name of the document can contain data points, dynamic data points that we pick from CRM. Right, but let's go into that email, because we also generated the email. So it starts from me, it comes from me, it goes to René Valdez, good old René Valdez, who is the quote contact for this specific quotation. It's called your quotation number and then the quotation ID. And this is my email, which is also generated in this case by SmartFlows. It says, hi René, so it's personalized, and it shows the full table of products. So think about this for a second. If you're using SmartFlows, you can actually use it not only for documents, you can also use it for emails. It's not an email marketing tool. It's not another click dimensions, but you can use it to generate emails that contain data that are coming from not only the record you start from, but more than more entities that are related with a hierarchy that is that can include multiple steps. Okay, you can do calculations in your in your email as well. Okay, you can print dates in there. You can put pictures in there if you want to. So it's blocked a little bit here by the interface, but if I open it up, there you go. That's my picture over here. And obviously, it has that attachment. If you look at the attachment, it's going to be the PDF file that we have created. If I open it up, there you go. It's a bit big here. Let me make that a little bit smaller for you. This is the document that we produced. It starts off with a nice picture, with a nice cover page that has the name of our potential customer. And as we go down, it has a date, valid until that date, as you can see. As we go down, it starts with our opening line. It was great to talk to you today, John. It was a bit strange because it's directed to Miss Valdez, so obviously it should be René over here. But that's what I typed, right? We should meet for drinks again soon. Okay. What you have over here is once again that beautiful picture of that funny character that's talking to you. And here we have the same table that we saw in the email. Only in this case, we have extended the data with data that's coming from our system. We're going into our related product database using the ID, and this is basically what our products share in Dynamics with our products in our product database. And we're bringing in that extra data like the color, the dimensions, and so on and so forth. This is the vendor name. This is not coming from CRM. This is coming from somewhere else, and we bring that data into the document. We can just map that data and just show it to show it in the document, but you can also use it in conditions. Like for instance, there's a field in our additional data that is called quantity on stock. Okay, and this is the quantity ordered, right? And basically, what we do over here is check whether the quantity ordered is higher or not, or is higher than the quantity in stock or not. If it's higher, And then we're going to say insufficient stock. If it's not higher, then we're going to say sufficient stock. So good look here. Everything is insufficient, is sufficiently in stock. All right, so let's have a look. Subtotals, discount. The discount here is a 10% discount, and we have calculated this discount. Also, as a matter of fact, the table row that you see over here is conditional. It's only showing up provided there actually is a discount. So that kind of conditions are very easy to set as well. Scrolling further on down, we said yes to the question, do you want to include those product sheets? Well, there they are. So we looped the products once again in this quotation. And as you can see, we also split them by product type. So you see 2 types of solar panels in this quotation, a solar boiler, a heat pump, and as we go further on down, that's basically it. Then we have the general terms and conditions. Remember, we cut the red tape. That's why it's a short version over here. So we have the short version of our terms and conditions. Okay, so that's the kind of document that you can make this thing produce. And it's not only producing the document, it's emailing the document straight away. Okay. As a matter of fact, we played it safe because we did not send the email straight away. We generated an email activity that's in a pending state. So for you to review whether everything is okay, and for instance, to make sure that you get rid of the John and put Renee instead, and then send the email out. Okay. But if you want to, if you feel lucky, you can send it out straight away. All right, next thing that I want to show you is same thing. We're going to start from a flow. So from a quote, rather. So start from a quote, and this time I'm going to run another flow, which is called quote with approval process. So what this thing is going to do is going to check whether the quote, the total amount of the quote, is more than 50K. If it's more than 50K, what's going to happen is that we're going to go through an approval process. If it's less than 50K, we're going to just send it straight out to DocuSign. So let's have a look. We started from 88M Solar. Total amount is 43K. So what we expect here is that if I click this button, we're going to go generate a document and deliver that document to DocuSign. There you go. So we're sending it to DocuSign, and then next up, the process is going to be in a waiting state. We're waiting for an external event right now. So what's the external event? Well, the external event is for good old Renee Valdez to actually go to our email and sign the quotation, right? So let's have a look. We got this email that came in from DocuSign. We're going to review our document. Obviously, if you have your DocuSign account all set up and you have your own branding in there and everything, we will use that branding. Also, if you have multiple brand identities set up, you can choose which one you want to use for which document. So a very similar document that we have produced over here. Yeah, and we're ready to sign, right? So this is the DocuSign experience. I'm going to just draw a signature in here, adopt and sign, and then go through all of the advertisements that DocuSign is kind of shooting at me. Okay, but now we're done. We have signed the document, and we're at a point where we're basically waiting for SmartFlows to pick up on the fact that we have signed the quotation. As that's going to happen, when SmartFlows understand that something happened there, it's going to pick up the signed document. It's going to generate a note or create a note in Dynamics against the record that started the entire process. And that note is going to contain an attachment. It's happening right now. It's going to contain an attachment, and the attachment is going to be the signed document. I can go to the note straight from here, but I can also go back to my record, open it up, go to my notes, and as you can see at 6:39, which is right now, a note was created saying, good news, the customer has signed the quotation. Please find the signed document attached. If we look at the document that we have over here, loading, loading, loading. Here we are. Let's make it a little bit smaller again. Okay. And we see that it is, in fact, the document that I just signed. So this is the beautiful signature I put in there. Okay. So that was pretty fast, I guess. Typically, the scenario would be that you do not create a note with the signed document, but that you would push the signed document in the SharePoint. And the good thing is I have a scenario that does that as well, and that's my field service scenario. I think I have a work order right here. If I go to work order, you'll also see that it works with the unified interface in Dynamics, so you can do the same thing over here. Click over here, it will load the same screen, just the same from the unified interface, and we can present an intervention report on our intervention work right here. So let's do that. This one is going to just generate a report. It's going to send it to DocuSign straight away, and it's going to, instead of send an email via DocuSign, it's going to present the link with the name of the user in code or the contact in question that has to sign the document, and it's going to take the person on screen to where they need to sign. So typically, this would be a scenario that you would run in the field on a mobile device, like an iPad or something like that, or maybe even a phone. As long as you're connected, you're going to be fine. So this is what it looks like. If you take pictures of the damage and everything, you can and you store them as note attachments. You can bring them in from there. Scrolling on down, you can see that there's some pricing information. There's some information about what has been completed, to which extent, how long it took, and then there's the signing option right here. So there you go. Adopt and sign. Finish. Good to go. Continue. It's going to bring you to another screen, and same process over here. We're waiting for the external event to happen, and in this case, the external event that will happen is that it's going to pick up the signed document and put it into SharePoint. Okay? Looking at the time, I'm not going to wait for that. I'm just going to go on and show you the perspective of an administrator. SmartFlows comes as a managed solution for Microsoft Dynamics. In fact, 2 managed solutions. So you just plug it in, and the main thing that it adds is this SmartFlows app that will be installed. It also adds 3 security roles to Dynamics: an administrator, a SmartFlows administrator, a designer, and a user role. And there's a second managed solution as well, and that contains a plugin for Microsoft Workflows. So if you create a workflow, you can actually start a SmartFlow from a workflow as well. So if you want to start a SmartFlow as part of an automated process triggered by, for instance, a status change or an update of a field on a record or whatever, you can run it as a process. Good. Let's open up the app, the SmartFlows app, to take us to the administrator experience. It opens up on a massive blue screen with a giant button. There's only one button to push. That's that one. And actually, we had a ticket in our system, in our support system earlier this week. It was somebody who was wondering, how do I open the project console from this screen? Well, you click the massive button. So there you are. So it opens up this screen, and this kind of shows you the flow of things. What do you have to do as an administrator? Well, you have to create data sets first, define which data you're going to basically use in your templates. Well, next thing, create some templates that make use of those data sets. And when you have a data set and when you have a template, you can start creating processes to generate, deliver, and store documents. And those processes are called flows. Okay, so that's kind of the logic of the application. There's also a control panel that shows you the connectors that you have, in this case to DocuSign, Dynamics, and SharePoint. You saw me use these connectors. By the way, all connections are safe for using OAuth 2. As a matter of fact, so that's all pretty safe. We don't store any kind of passwords or anything. It's all access token and refresh token based. So you can kind of revoke access at any point if you want to. Back to the control panel, we also like to indicate what's happening. So you can see what's been happening, which flows have run, how many of those were successful, who's been busy, what were the most popular flows, and so on and so forth. So that's, in terms of reporting, that's all quite nice as well. I think those are the most important points I wanted to touch here on this screen. So let's go to the flow through the flow of the application. Data sets first. So basically, to define which data we're going to pick up from Dynamics, what you want to do is create a data set. And I'm going to create a quote data set for you. I'll just call it MSDW quote. And that's going to be a standard data set. If you want to ask custom questions to the end user, that's going to be a custom data set, and then you get a form builder, and you can build a little form with a couple of questions that you can as the end user. And there's the schema data set as well. If you want to go and fetch data that is in an external system, then you want to create a schema data set. Schema data set, you upload a schema definition file, and then you put in the flow, you put a step that collects XML that corresponds to that schema. Okay, but let's keep things simple and straightforward. Standard data set. What you want to do is select your primary entity. I'm going to start from the quote entity right here. Okay, and then just hit create. Right, so we're on the dataset builder right now. We have some fields, we have relations, as you can see, many-to-ones, one-to-manys. And how do you build out everything over here? Well, it's pretty easy. So you see that by default, all of the fields that have quote are selected. If I want to unselect a couple of fields because I don't need to map them, I can just unselect them. I can unselect everything if I want to, and just start selecting fields one by one, reselect everything, no worries. Okay. If I'm looking for a certain field, I can search and I can type the name of a field, and then it's going to kind of limit the list down to everything that has the word bill in it. Okay. Say that I want to include relationships, like I want to include my account manager, which is a user, and I want to include maybe my potential customer who is an account, then I get these other entities added to my data set straight away. Say that from my account, from my quote as well, I want to include the line items. Let me just type line, and I want to see the quote lines. I can include them like that. Say that from the quote line items, I want to go on and include the existing product records that are related to those line items. Then I can drill down to product, and so on and so forth. So you can keep on building. As you can see, we went from quote to quote line to product. We're already 3 levels down the hierarchy of related entities in Dynamics, and you can keep on building. You can take it from quote, say that if you want to, from product, and say you want to include the notes of your products, you can include the notes, and so on and so forth. So that's 4 levels down. You can keep building. I think current record is 30 levels down in the hierarchy, and it still comes out in a couple of seconds. Okay, let's save the changes so we have our data set. Next up, we're going to create a template. Call this the MSDW template. Okay, and my MSDW template is going to make use of my MSDW quote data set that I just produced. Okay, there are 2 types of templates that you can produce: standard templates or composition templates. So standard templates, that's exactly what you think when I say template. And then composition templates are basically jigsaw puzzles with a header zone and a footer zone and a body zone and an insert zone, where you can combine other templates into one resulting document. Say, for instance, you have a document that needs to have a terms and conditions section, and then you say quote, and then you have another document, for instance, an invoice, that also has that terms and conditions section. Wouldn't it be nice if the same terms and conditions section could be reused across those different templates? Well, that's what a composition is all about. So if your terms and conditions would change, you just go to the terms and conditions template, change or make the changes, and automatically all of the compositions that are making use of that terms and conditions section will be updated to the latest version of that section. Okay, but I'm going to keep it simple. Just create a standard template, create, there you go, create it. Okay, so last thing to do is design the document and create a flow. Let me just create a flow straight away and say that we want to call this the MSDW flow. And we're making use of the MSDW template in there. And what do we want to do? Well, maybe we want to send this to DocuSign, store it in SharePoint, and what else? Maybe email it out, something like that. Okay, and let's create. So what's going to happen right now is that we're creating a flow, and this is the visual designer I told you about. So this is going to start the flow from Dynamics, from my quote record in Dynamics. It's going to retrieve my quote data. It's going to generate my document. Then next up, it's going to send an email. It's going to send to DocuSign. It's going to store it to SharePoint. Now my flow isn't finished. I have to go into these things and do some more settings, like define the from address for my email, define the to address for my email, define the subject, the message, and so on and so forth. Some more properties like regarding which records I want to set this, what the priority for my email is, and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm not going to fill it out. That's why you get this red cross right now, because the to field is an obligatory field, and I didn't put a value in there. Same thing for DocuSign. You do DocuSign settings over here, and then you're good to go. Same thing for SharePoint. You want to see where, for instance, in SharePoint you want to store it, and say that you want to store it in the SharePoint document location of the quote record that you started from. Well, you basically go to your data, your quote, your fields, and you'll find the field called SharePoint document locations in there, and save, and that's it. Okay. If you want to do a custom path, you can just type up a custom path over here. That's perfectly possible as well. Okay. You want to add metadata? Well, okay. If you know the column, then the name of the column, then you just type that in key. You just define whether that is an integer, a note, a datetime, a counter, and so on and so forth. And then you just put the value in there. That value can be something that you type up here, or can once again be something that you pick up from anywhere. Okay. So that's that. That's your flow. That's how you build out your flow. Cool thing is that you can do conditional stuff in here. You can insert condition switches. You can message the end user as he's creating documents, and you can do convert steps to password protect your documents, and so on and so forth. So quite a few things. And if you look at the output controls, let me get to the output block, or the store and deliver block. There's quite a few things in terms of connectors, what you can do with a generated file. Okay, so 6:52, I'm going to go on to show you just a couple of things in Microsoft Word. I'm sorry. Okay, so I have this massive screen here. That's much better. Okay, I'm going to real quickly show you a couple of things on how you do the template design in Microsoft Word, and then I'm going to open it up for questions if we have some time left for that. Okay, how does this all work? You open up a template like this. You just go click template, and you open up a template like the MSDW template that we have just produced. Since we produced it, it's in our project. Okay, we can say okay over here to open it. If we want to open up the English version, if we want to open up the German version of that same template, we're gonna be able to do that as well. And then we have a blank template which will have that same right pane over here with the data set that we just produced attached to it. Okay, but I have this one already open. I'm going to work with this one real quick to show you a couple of things. So we have all the fields up here, and we can easily map those fields over here. Say that we want to go in and find for instance, or map the name of the company that we're sending this quotation to. So basically what we want to do is go and find our potential customer. It's an account, and we have account name. And then what we can do over here is double click the name of that account. By the way, you see this is our field inspector. You can actually add samples to your data sets, and that's pretty handy, because then you see as you navigate the different fields over here what the value of that particular field is for this particular for the record that you use to create the sample. Okay, that's pretty handy as you're mapping stuff into your document. Looking at that mapping that we just did, if you click it, it's going to highlight over here. You can double click it then and go to formatting, and then you can define how it should be formatted: as text, as currency, as number, say that this would be a currency value, for instance, and you can say, no, this is US English that I want to use as my locale. I can select a symbol like euro symbol or dollar symbol, and there's quite a few other ones that we have in the list. You can choose whether it should go in front or at the back, how many decimal places, and so on and so forth. You have the same thing for dates and times, so you can kind of select how you want to produce your dates, right? So super easy. Okay. What else? If we want to do, I'm just going to get rid of the mapping. Oh, sorry. What else you can do? Well, for instance, if you want to make something show up conditionally, say that you take this block and this entire block, and you want to make that show up conditionally only for customers who live in the US, okay? Then what you basically do is select what you want to make conditional, and then next up, you find the field that you want to use in that condition, and your field could be, for instance, address one country region, right? As you can see, it's in the Republic of China, so what I expect is if I make this entire part conditional, and it's not going to show up if I spin my document for a preview. So let's finish the building of the condition. What I did first is select the thing or the part of the canvas I want to make show up conditionally. Step 2, select the field that I want to use in my condition as a parameter, and then step 3 is that I basically hit condition, and that's going to bring up the condition wizard where I can say, hey, check whether a field has a specific value. Which field? The field I just selected there. I'm going to use it as text, and I said it's equal. It has to be equal to United States, and if it's equal to United States, I want to show this entire block. If not, I don't want to show the entire block. If you go to the mapping right now, what you see is that it now says if address one country equals United States, then everything that's in here will be shown. Otherwise, it will not be shown. Okay, so let's have a look at that. We can run a preview anytime. There you go. Let's preview the thing. Okay, so there you go. And as you can see, the entire block that we had there is gone now. And why is it gone? Well, because our customer is living in China and not in the US. So that's for conditions. I wanted to show you loops and a couple of other things that are possible as well. But I think I'm going to stop it here, and I'd rather open it up for questions since we have some time left. Laura, I'm not sure if you're going to kind of monitor that.
Sure, I certainly will, Erwin. So if you do have questions, we've got a couple minutes left. Go ahead and type them in to the Q&A box on the right side there. Let me look and see what's come in so far. Let's see, here's one. Can the flow also create a quote for invoicing in GP?
That's a very good question. Right now, we have the out-of-the-box integration with Microsoft Dynamics CRM. But what you can perfectly do is start a process from CRM and then bring in data from GP, much like what I did from with my product data, with my external product data. If we bring up that flow, maybe I shouldn't bring up the flow. Just talk you through it. But as a matter of fact, there is a block over here, which is the in the collect data. In the input thing, where you can retrieve data from a URL. Yeah. So if you can make sure that you have a REST-based service that kind of goes into GP, brings in the invoice data that you need for the invoice in question, then you can do it that way. Okay. By the way, you can also define headers in your request over here. So you can pass parameters not only through the query string, the URL query string over here, but also to or through a header.
Okay. How about any chance of using Adobe Sign instead of DocuSign?
We're working on integration with different e-signature providers at this point. There are a lot of providers on our wish list, and quite a few of those are currently under investigation. And Adobe one is heading all lists.
Okay.
Sorry, Adobe Sign is heading all lists, number one on all the lists.
Okay, let's see. Besides Dynamics 365, what other data sources can SmartFlows connect to?
Well, anything that can spit XML, basically. That's a very short answer to that question. So you can start a process from within Dynamics, but you can also, as a matter of fact, you can also start the process not from within Dynamics, but you can also start it from what we call another program over here, which would basically be any data source you have. And just if it would be the case that we have any developers in the room, I'm just going to type this thing up, and that's going to be very reassuring for these people. It's going to scare everybody else away. But basically, everything you saw me do during this demo is, as a matter of fact, I just used a thin layer of user interface on top of a very rich API, which you can have a look at through Swagger UI, that has all the operations. Like, for instance, the flow execution operations. If you look at those operations, or list or expand the, let me just list the operations. There you go. You see all the operations that you can do. You can execute a flow. You can get back to the flow executions, and so on and so forth. So there's basically everything can be done. Also, in terms of if you have your templates all finished and your flows all prepared, and you kind of want to promote all of that to another Dynamics environment, that's possible as well. That's through an export and an import. Well, these operations are available through the API as well, so you can kind of factor that into your promotion kind of flow that you maybe already have. Any more questions?
Well, I think we're going to have to end it there. We're out of time, and I don't want to keep people longer than the hour. But Erwin, that was really, really informational. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that demo. Thank you, everybody, for participating. We did record today's event, and we'll be making that available to you. And then also, when you close out of the event today, you will see a very brief survey that'll pop up, and the feedback does help us here at MACW, and it also helps our speakers. So, Erwin, thanks again, and I think we're going to end it there.
Okay, thank you.